I'm joined by the Principal Secretary at the State Department for East African Community and the Chairman of the Social and Political Pillar Vision 2030 Board, PS Kevit. Desai, welcome to the Morning Fix and welcome to Radio 44.
Thank you, Mr. Joshi.
It's a pleasure to have you. Now, you are the Principal Secretary at the State Department, as mentioned, for East African Community and the Chairman of the Social and Political Pillar Vision 2030 Board. Tell us about your role in the government.
Indeed, it's very exciting. Indeed, there's so much potential. It is one of the most interesting features within the context of policy making, because you're in charge as the accounting authority and officer of the State Department's performance. And we follow the principles of the Medium-Term Plan 4, which gives us state directives with respect to the performance that we have to achieve within the context of our policy formulation. And this then promotes the overall development of our contribution within the context of Kenya's development, its social, economic and environmental issues. Now, within the context of my particular portfolio, I'm currently the Principal Secretary for the Ministry of EAC, East African Community, and within that context, we've had a very successful outcome throughout the year. The whole emphasis to date was to see to it that we would promote commerce as a driver for inclusive development, as well as inclusivity and resilience within the context of our country. And this is done extremely well within the context of some of the achievements that have been achieved to date, which include promoting greater market access within the entire East African community by inviting DRC Congo to join us, and now our entire market stands at 300 million people. This is absolutely essential within the context of commerce, which includes services, trade and industry. But it's also the success we've had in developing a common external tariff, which ensures that we're able to now nurture Africa's wish for industrialization and promote the highest level of capacity within the context of local content and local manufacturing in the continent. And indeed, we've concluded on the African Continental Free Trade Area that provides a further access to approximately some 44 countries and 900 million people.
Wow.
Now, this is all with a view that, we believe that movement of people as well as commerce is essential for inclusive development, self-reliance and resilience. And this is essentially what the State Department does. It also looks into the affairs of business reform. Today's economy at 6 trillion is a significant milestone within the context of our growing population and the need to have greater levels of commerce. And this has been successfully achieved within the context of ensuring that policies, legislations, regulations, and standards are efficient, are innovative, and are productive within the context of business reform. And so these are some of the key areas that are essential within the context of our achievement towards the medium-term plans, and indeed the President's pronouncements as well as his directives.
Tell us a bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? How did you end up becoming the Principal Secretary? Take us through that entire portfolio of yours from childhood now to becoming the Principal Secretary.
Now, indeed, it's been very exciting and incredibly challenging too. I was born and brought up in Kenya. I went to several high schools and then including Imani and USI, and the American school, the international school. And then after that, I left for abroad. I spent 5 years in England. I studied electronic engineering, and thereafter went to Japan and I did my postgraduate degree in robotics and control system engineering, only to return back in 1993 and then set up my own company, which was a technology transfer organization, Centurion Systems, which provided solutions for industrial automation, new technologies, training, and further capacity development. And simultaneously, I was involved in various development activities, including my long role of almost 10 years, starting from a director, governor, and a CEO at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, and then another 10 years with the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. And there I was progressively trying to promote the business ecosystem for new technology transfer organizations. And so that led me to be involved as the ICT governor, thereby creating the first strategy for ICT transformation within the country, and also the inclusion of what was critical as far as policy in the economic recovery strategy. And simultaneously too, I was involved in education almost 12 years, being involved in all the policies, sessional papers, the strategies, culminating in the 4 acts: the Universities Act, the Kevit Act, the Kenya National Qualifications Framework, and the Science, Technology, Innovation Act. So I did this in pursuit of development. Indeed, it was extremely exciting. And then I was called to join government, and I said yes, because indeed government is the place to inform policy that makes tremendous and has a great amplification as far as what it can achieve within the context of social, economic, and environmental transformation. And so initially I was the Principal Secretary for Technical Vocational Training.
Right.
And there it was all about trying to find how we could achieve gainful employment for our youth. And we developed mechanisms and structures to introduce competency-based education and training, because technology and artisan courses only achieve great success when they are based on standards,
Yes.
something that you can actually measure.
Yes.
And so that would then promote gainful employment and a link to employment. So education is all about standards, it's all about measurement, and it's all about having the necessary policy framework. So competency-based education training was the first policy. The second policy that was developed was the recognition of prior learning, in view of the fact that lifelong learning is absolutely essential for one's success in life, and therefore the ability to have pathways to enter in repeatedly
Yeah.
to become more productive, more skilled, more capable is absolutely essential. We also saw and oversaw the entire expansion of the educational sector and enrollment. When I joined the ministry, it was at 70,000. When I left, it was nearing 500,000
Wow.
students with 240 institutions. And so it was a huge effort, and I think that it was an all-government approach. But most importantly, we had communities that played a significant role in promoting apprenticeship programs and that collaborative effort towards educational systems. And then 2 years ago, I was then appointed to be the Principal Secretary for the East African Community, and that was extremely diverse, because it meant dealing with 6 partner states,
Yes.
and now a 7th partner state.
In DRC.
And indeed, that ability to have our positioning, but
Yep.
also our leadership within
Yep.
the context of the region and the continent.
On air, online.
Join the Radio 44 family on all major social media platforms. Follow us at Radio 44 Kenya.
It is time for me to ask this big question. Tomorrow is an important day for us as Kenyans, and of course Kenya for its future. For those who have registered, why is it important to go and vote and not just stay at home?
Well, indeed, this tomorrow needs to be viewed as a great development moment within the context of the country's aspirations, all the way from the time of independence, the aspirations then for freedom, and the self-rule and the ability for us to progressively address issues of inclusive development, resilience, self-reliance, then moving on to successive different governments which then pointed this country within the context of the economic recovery strategy, the Vision 2030, which hugely emphasizes a globally competitive and prosperous country with a high quality of life by 2030, as well as solutions towards promoting and being able to move up the economic value chains, the ability for us to have a concentric policy towards investing in people, as well as the ability for us to grow as one nation and with it, to be able to address decent and gainful employment for every Kenyans. And so some of these visions which were espoused within the context of our development then are achieved through the medium-term Plan 4, which the government's key policy within respect for its agenda.
Yeah.
And so the need for voting is absolutely critical at this stage, because it promotes an inclusive involvement, an ownership, a collective capability. It is what is espoused by way of the Constitution within the context of how the civil society, the private sector, all stakeholders, together with the public sector, mean development and achieve development. And so therefore the absolute need for aspects to achieve outcomes of issue-based as well as people-centered and result-orientated outcomes. And it's for this reason why we must all vote. And indeed, this is a very liberal democracy.
Yes.
Within the context of where we are today. And it's a great achievement and a great time to participate fully within the context of finding solutions for some of the challenges we have, both socially, economically, and environmentally.
Correct. Well put right there. But to those voting, what would you advise as they go to pick their leaders, especially the fifth president and also other leaders like the MCAs, the MPs, the governors, the senators?
Well, indeed, the importance of appreciating and understanding what this country envisions by way of its Vision 2030 goals, that leaders need to be issue-based, development-orientated, they need to be people-centered, results-orientated, accountable, appreciate that this is a democratic society, promote freedom of speech as well as individual liberties. And all of these are very important values that we put the highest level within the context of whether you're in government or whether you're in civil society or private sector. As individual Kenyans, it becomes absolutely critical that we identify leaders, but we also, most importantly, understand that we have a role to play within that collective ownership and collective engagement and responsibility that we generally have towards development issues.
Correct. I'm loving your answers because they're so on point, especially when you talk about, like, I'll put it in a smaller phase, the SMART objectives, because you've actually mentioned all of those. That's what you need to see in all the leaders. We are talking about voting and, of course, the general elections set to take place tomorrow. And as with every election, PS, Kenyans often go through, myriad of emotions. Is it going to be safe? Is it going to be this? Am I going to be voting for the right person? All sorts of emotion. But often in the Asian community, the 44th tribe now, there is that sense of people saying, you know what, I don't think I want to do it. I don't think I want to go. I don't think I want to vote. What would you like to say to those people?
Well, I think that, it is absolutely critical, and I encourage everyone to vote, to be part and parcel of this development moment, to identify a leader of their choice among so many different leaders in different positions and capacities, etc., and so on. It does make a difference, that vote tomorrow. It is absolutely critical to appreciate that, that if they would like to abstain from voting because of any past occurrence, I think then that's absolutely incorrect, because this time round, we have the government has assured all citizens within the context of the security, and therefore there will be no hindrances, and indeed it'll be a great chance to exercise, your democratic principle of vote. And it's absolutely essential that they do turn up and invest that time, whether it's standing in line or whatever the procedure is. But by all means to vote, and to ensure that they participate, and to ensure that they also manage their anxiety, because there is absolutely no reason to have any anxiety. I think that these are just naturally competitive elections, but that's all. And I think that, everything is calm and normal. And therefore, one should not have any anxiety at all. In fact, anxiety distorts decisions And therefore, it's very important that people stay calm and simply just do what's needful for their country.
Correct. I think we learn from our mistakes, and that's exactly what you said. Don't go with the past occurrence. But in a scenario where citizen votes for a leader who is then not elected, how would you advise them to manage their expectations?
Well, this is a very liberal country, and there are many different avenues and ways to participate in development. I think it's very critical that we have that unity of purpose within the context of our development to consistently progress what the existing government has achieved, so that we are able to continually progressively find solutions for some of the challenges that we face, both socially, economically and environmentally. And going forward, we'll need all of us to be together. And so I think that it's absolutely essential that one appreciates and understands that, yes, there will be possibly electoral winners and losers, but in the larger space of things, within the context of our development, the history, our legacy, the very foundation of our principles and values, then it's not a great matter of concern. And I think that we just have to keep working together and promoting development.
Yeah, for the betterment of the country. And we've spoken about voting and how each one of us should go out there and vote, and just use our rights to elect a president or elect MCAs, MPs, and all the other leaders that we can. But how can we as a society view an election process more positively, as opposed to what happened in the 2007, which has been a fear amongst quite a few people that hopefully it doesn't repeat?
Well, indeed, since 2007, there's been various transformations, including, the most important one, the Constitution. And within that context, the development of that Constitution emphasizes, the participatory nature of all citizens within the context of our development goals. And so that translates into our ability to view this as an opportunity in this new process, within the context of our involvement, to be truly involved in issues with respect to the actual structures and frameworks of this country. And I think that is a great difference within the context of what it was in the very past, very, very past, where there wasn't that alignment, there wasn't that inclusive approach. And now, where there's a shared responsibility, a collective responsibility to our social, economic and environmental issues. And I think that this is how it has to be viewed. It has to be viewed by the fact that indeed the citizens of this country are involved within the context of every agenda as far as development is concerned. And therefore, the election of a leader, the election of the different forms of governments and so on, are part and parcel of this whole process. And I think that's all it is, at the end of the day. And I think that one shouldn't overemphasize it. There are structures and frameworks that include this. And it's for this reason the Vision 2030, which emanated from the Economic Recovery Strategy, deliberated on this and promoted that inclusive nature of involvement of all Kenyans within its work, as far as its involvement in its social platforms and political platforms are concerned. On the social platforms, we've seen great strides as far as universal healthcare and the opening up of hospitals throughout this country. But we've also seen the ability for us to standardize our structures, both from a world perspective, a regional perspective, through an e-health and One Health strategy within the context of the East African community. On the political side, the emphasis has been to create a blueprint as far as the manifestos are concerned. And it's this blueprint which now promotes the highest level of inclusivity and critically looks at some of the key values that we are pursuing and what we need to achieve as far as our prosperity is concerned. The reason we have developed this blueprint is it's not only for political parties, but it's for the entire nation. It's for all stakeholders to be involved and be self-regulating as well as inclusive to development. And so I think this gives us the biggest hope and the reason why tomorrow's election is different,
Yeah.
why it's secure, and indeed why we must all invest time to make a difference by voting and being participatory of development actions into the future.
Well, thank you so much, PS Kevit Desai, for coming to our studios and gracing the Morning Fix as well. Any parting thoughts that you have?
Now, indeed, I would like to encourage Asians to participate in issues of policy as well as legislation, regulation at government level. We've seen this as is absolutely critical. I think that they can make a huge difference by way of the fact that they come from very industrious backgrounds. For me, it has been the greatest honor serving in government, serving the people through government, and I think that it's an exceptional opportunity that can make a huge difference in one's personal life, but also their contributions to community, society, and so on. I think it's absolutely important to be involved in policy. I speak from a situation where we constantly are challenged within the context of why Asians are not involved in government. And I think that this has to be incorrect, because at the end of the day, it's people like, for example, my grandfather, J.M. Desai, who was also one of the most important, illustrious, and the most catalytic leader for bringing freedom within the context of Kenya, once advised me too that, if you have an idea, you'd like to make a difference, then the best approach is to be in government and to inform policy, and that's how development takes place. So I do encourage the Asian community to look into the affairs of development within the context of social, economic, and environmental issues, and to participate within this context of policy formulation. And indeed, it's what this country needs and what would make a difference.
Well, thank you so much once again for coming to our studios.
24/7. 24/7. Around the world, non-stop. This is Radio 44.